What's up YouTube? Welcome back. 9mm ammo testing time. We have a current test series going on for 9mm, and in that test series we have test number 6 and number 7. That would be Winchester plus P 124 grain, Defender, and then we have the 147 grain. Actually, test number 6 is this one, test number 7 is that. But we're gonna sidestep that and just put them together. Some people like to see it all smashed together. I'm gonna roll in footage from both of those gel tests and accuracy tests, velocity testing, stuff like that. So you're gonna be able to compare these kind of side by side in the same video. So enjoy. What's up YouTube? Welcome back. 9mm ammo test series continued. We're on to number 6. We recently finished 1 through 5, did a low light test on that. Now we're on for 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. To start this batch of testing out, we're gonna go with Winchester Defender 9mm 147 grain bonded jacketed hollow point. This one has an advertised muzzle velocity of 1,000 feet per second, translating out to an energy foot-pounds of 326. They have a semi-segmented jacketed hollow point there. Maybe that's what you would call that. Pretty deep. Overall, they're kind of tarnished looking, a little bit older. They're in nickel cases, but they do just look a little bit dirty from the factory. They do say that this has some low flash powder in it, so we'll find that out when we do our low light testing. But in general, I have found Winchester Defenders, even if they look a little dirty here and there, they tend to perform really well. So let's see how they do out of these 9mm today. The two firearms we're going to be using today are the 3.1-inch Smith Wesson 9mm Shield Gen 1 and the 4.5-inch Glock 17. And I don't know if it matters, but that's a Gen 5. We're going to be putting 5 rounds through each one of these firearms into these B8 targets. And I always have to say this, we do our accuracy testing offhand. We'll be 20 feet off the paper, 15 feet off the chronograph, but I don't use a bench or a rest or anything like that because in a real life defensive shooting, you would not have those luxuries, so we are checking for practical accuracy. As long as this chronograph behaves itself today, we'll get an average of velocity and foot-pounds. Then we're going to move the chronograph to right in front of the block of gel so that we can capture the velocity of the bullets as they impact the gel. And we have 2 brand new 10% clear ballistics gel blocks, 16 inches apiece, for a total of 32 inches. Testing explained, let's get to shooting. All right, 15 feet off the chronograph, 20 feet off of the target, left B8. Let's see how we can do with a little shorty shield. Feels really nice in the hand. We got a 999, so that's only 1 off from the 1,000 that they said, and that was out of a 3.1-inch barrel. And 990. $10.02. $967. And $986. Let's go take a look. I almost got a perfect score. So darn it, my excuses is that we switch guns all the time for testing, and then I have to get reused to the sights, and darn it, that was my first shot. After that, boy, this thing shoots really accurate with this ammunition. So that is completely my fault right there. I'm not making excuses of why I couldn't do it. I'm making excuses of why I screwed it up. The rest of those landed right where they needed to be. That feels really nice in the hand. I know it's 9mm, it's not that much, but we did achieve the velocities that they said on the box, and we did it with this short barrel. Let's see how this translates over to the Glock. All right, that's gonna be pretty hard to top, but hopefully I don't have to have an excuse this time and we get all 5 in the bullseye. Already screwed it up, but 1025. $10.12. Gosh, Glocks have a long trigger, and I shot really high that time. $10.71. $10.58, and it does feel like a total baby out of this gun. And $10.45. Let's take a look. So that was my first shot, and then I completely winged one up here somehow. and then I got it back where it needed to be. We got U-notch sights versus the three dot white sights over here on the Shield. I mean, I like these sights, are not bad if you get used to shooting them, but in general, that's still really good accuracy. Both of these are totally 100% completely acceptable for defensive accuracy. I always say that if you stay in the black, no matter what, however you're shooting, if you're in the black, you're going to be doing pretty good on defensive style shooting. I don't like those really big, huge targets that people shoot at all the time. Aim small, miss small. All right, 147 grain Winchester Defender, 3.18 inch barrel into the gel, the brand new gel that we're going to wreck now. Hopefully we didn't leave the block, and we did not get a chronograph reading. I was too far to the left, but let's take a look. All right, by some miracle, I ended up hitting there and did not leave the block. I just said how accurate that was out of that gun, and then I shoot that left. I was trying to shoot low, but anyway, nice entrance wound, very consistent. I mean, for a 9mm, I'm not trying to pick on 9mm, but we shoot a ton of 10mm, 45, 450 SMC, 45 Super, things like that. Check out those gel tests and you'll see what I mean. But for a 9mm, it did its job. It opened up, it hollow pointed itself, and it made one big piercing wound track with an okay, moderate size permanent wound cavity. It almost left that block. I'm pretty sure it tried to get it right out the end and then it bounced back. So I'm gonna have to call that at 16 inches with a bounce back to about 15.5. I'll put the tape on it just because. So there you go, 15.5. If it was 16, it would be leaving the block, but it did not. Let's take a look from the top. All right, coming in from the top, that wound channel does look a little bit better, just the way it is at the angle that you can see it. But then we get back down to that piercing wound track all the way down to the end where the bullet is obviously opened up and laying in there. We'll get it dug out after the next shot, but for now, that's what we got. It does look much better from the top. You can definitely see some disruption, so it did dump a little energy right there at the beginning. All right, let's see if more barrel length equals more speed to get more puncture, or if it opens up the hollow point more and it slows it down. 4.5 inch barreled Glock 17. All right, 1045. .45. All right, there's the entrance for that one. And coming around to the side, we have almost an identical looking wound path all the way down. You could argue that from this angle at least, there appears to be a tiny bit more disruption. Being a brand new gel block, we have that distorted look. Until you remelt them one time, you kind of get like a weird wobbly effect in there. They both ended up at almost the same place. I would say this one rested just a hair more forward, but they had the same bounce back. If you look carefully, you can see, I think at this moment, they had pretty much the same amount of go through, almost 16 inches, and then bounce back. Let's take a look from the top. All right, from the top, side by side, they both do look similar again, except for this one, if you look right there at that part, that could be just how we're looking at it, but it might have continued that wound track just a little bit more on the violent side. Especially here, it looks like it did some sort of a wobble. It's really cool sometimes how you see two different things from two different angles on the gel. But yeah, it looks like it could be a little bit more violent. And then when it ended up down here, it's turned around a little bit, still opened up. We'll get these things dug out for you and take a look, but not too bad right there. I think that the Glock, I'm gonna go ahead and say I think the Glock did just a little bit better. All right, as bonded bullets typically do, these stayed together pretty well. They look very similar. This is the Shield, this is the Glock. I think we could say that the Glock flattened itself out just a hair more. You can see that there's a little bit of a difference right there in the middle. Turning them on their side, you can see that they've done pretty much the same thing. You can kind of roll them around and look, they've all pedaled back uniformly. With the bonded bullet, the lead does not come off of the copper jacket as easily. Sometimes it still does, but not as easy. Turning them over, we do see an exposed lead bottom. And then they look pretty much the same, really. We'll have the scale on the corner and the size, but pretty much the same thing with just a very slight difference in performance. We also saw it's very accurate, and we saw that it's very shootable. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. 9mm test number 7 in the ammo test series. We're going pretty far. We're finally catching up to some of the other calibers. Now, This one here is a 124 grain plus P offering. We just did the 147 grain from Winchester, but this Winchester Defender ammunition does pretty good. It's a bonded jacketed hollow point. It's a little dirty from the factory on the nickel plated brass, and it's a little bit tarnished on the copper, but it's got a nice looking hollow point to it. Supposedly uses low flash powders. And right there the box says Elite, so you know it has to be good. We'll put the Elite part to the test. And like I said, they supposedly use low flash powders in this. We'll be testing this. Every time we do a 5-block series of testing, like 1 through 5, and now it's gonna be 6 through 10, we test that 5-block test series of ammo in low light. We come out here in the dark, we set it off in a gun, a couple shots at night to see what if it could be a blinding effect or not, to see if they really do use flash suppressive powders, because a defensive situation at night with your defensive carry handgun, we want to see what it's going to look like with the flash. It could be a really bad thing if you're temporarily blinded and you can't see anything for any kind of follow-ups. All right, I had super good luck out of the 147 grain stuff out of this firearm. Let's see how the Shield does today with the 124 grain plus P. And the other stuff felt really nice, so let's see if this is a little bit more, as they say, snappy. We had 1170, pretty nice. $11.43. $11.30. $11.68. And $11.39. I definitely think it's a little bit louder. It might feel like there's a little bit more boom in your hand, but not that snappy stuff that people like to talk about. Pretty easy to shoot in my opinion. Let's take a look at the target. I would say it's just as accurate as the 147 grain stuff out of this handgun. That's a really nice group. I will take that every day. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. All right, now let me switch over to some U-notch Glock stock sights and see how we do with those. Not my favorite, but not too bad. They're usually better when the sun's out. When it's low cast or overcast like this, not so good. $12.03. $12.10. $12.22. $12.27. And $12.06. Let's take a look at that. Well, the stuff's pretty darn accurate out of this firearm too. Just so you know, what I was talking about with the U-notch sights, what I don't like about them in overcast is for some reason this back notch seems to kind of glow. You're supposed to focus on the front sight when you're doing iron sights, and when you do focus on that, this seems to like be just a total glowing half circle around you. I don't like that too much, but it translated okay for standing still shooting at a target. Very good accuracy out of both of these firearms. We almost had kind of the same group, really. We had just one come up a little bit on both of them, but I would take that every single day of the week. All right, there's already 2 hits in that block, but we got to try to use it as much as we can. It's really expensive. I don't get that stuff for free. I'm going to try to get there low and in the center. We are 15 feet off the block and the gel. I think we got what we wanted at 11.54. $11.54. We hit the block right where we wanted. This was previous test. Don't worry about that at the moment. And coming into the block, this is a new block. Like I said, I did hit the side of it with a heat gun, but it makes it look a little wobbly until you remelt them one time. But man, that thing reached all the way into the next block. It went to 17, maybe 17 and a half inches with a little bit of a bounce back. It pedaled open. You can see right past it, you see where it goes forward and then bounces back just a hair. Almost all bullets do it just a little bit. But nice even wound channel, and it looks like it's a pretty good disruption from start to finish. It didn't get too crazy in the beginning, it just did its thing all the way down until about the 10-inch mark, and then maybe started tapering down a hair. Let's look from the top. All right, so coming in from the top, you do see some good disruption, and it just turns this, it turns itself to the side a little bit, so it's still going on, but you just can't see it as well. Pretty much continues to the end of the block. It gets down to a little bit more piercing at the end as it leaves that block and moves into the 17th inch opened up, as you can see right there. Not too bad. All right, let's see what happens when we put a 4.5-inch Glock barrel behind that bullet. Or around that bullet. Nice. And we got 1224. .1224. We hit right where we wanted to, right there. And this is the wound channel we're looking at right here. So again, very consistent as we move down. I mean, you can't really beat that. That's a good wound channel all the way down. It did not go as far. I'm going to go ahead and attribute that to going faster velocity, opens up that hollow point a little bit more and slows it down. As I say, puts the brakes on it. But very nice. Comparing it to the one right underneath it, they look pretty comparable. This one might have a little bit more disruption here at the beginning though. Let's take a look from the top, see what we can see. All right, it's a little bit of a struggle to get the right angle there, but side by side, you see those bottom two, that's what they are, and they are pretty darn close. They both come here down to the end. One stops short, but it did try to poke. It touched the edge of the block, and then the other one made it a little bit farther. All right, the beauty of getting all four of these in the same block is that the test previous to this was the 147 grain. So up at the top, you're going to see the Winchester Defender 147, and at the bottom, the Winchester Defender plus P 124. They all did pretty much the same thing, except for this one wobbly part there. And then 3 of them ended up right before the end of the block. 1 of them poked through. We will stitch a video together. That'll be the next one. Probably tomorrow you'll see that. And then that'll be, like I said, stitched together, so it's a little bit easier to see both of these ammunition types compared in both of these guns. All right, these look a little bit different than the 147 grainers. These have more of a black talon type of effect, where the copper, these are bonded, so when they come back, they still retain the connection to the lead, but you can see this hook that they create, like a black talon. That is pretty gnarly looking. Those things would do some serious damage. That is out of the Shield. This one is out of the Glock. I don't know, you can kind of see how it flattened itself out just a little bit more, I guess. It's more smooth, but did the same thing with these ripping talon effects. That was not how the 147s looked. We'll have the measurements up in the corner of the screen, but I think they retained all their weight, being a bonded bullet. All right, all 4 of them next to each other. We have Smith Wesson and Glock 147, and then Smith Wesson and Glock 124 grain plus P. They're close, but they're not totally the same. Being bonded bullets, they both stayed connected to their copper pretty well. However, these ones out of the 124 acted more like a black talon in my opinion. Maybe it would have happened a little bit more here with different velocities, I'm not sure. But when you turn them upside down, you're going to see that these have a lot sharper claws sticking out of them. If you guys know what I'm talking about with black talons, they have these hooks. They tend to be very gnarly. Not so much out of the 147. It's kind of flattened and smushed out where it's almost like they never opened up. But these ones sure did. So if everything worked out right, you should have 3 videos in a row. 147 grain, 124 grain, and then both of them together. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoy this type of testing. And until we see you next time, stay safe, have fun, and keep shooting.